This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I'm joined all the way from Islay today by the founder of Kilchoman Distillery, Mr. Anthony Wills. How are you today, sir?
Very good indeed, thanks.
Superb. Now, tell me a little bit about the history behind the recent history, actually, behind the Kilchoman Distillery, because it's a bit of a unique tale, is it not?
Yeah, no, yeah. I think that I was the brave one to build a new distillery in Scotland. One of the first ones, certainly on Islay, for 124 years, and it was about seeing that there was a spot in the market for a new distillery, really, and going against the grain in the sense that there are over 100 distilleries in Scotland, and why would you need more of them, really? But there was a growing demand from whiskey enthusiasts and lovers around the world to explore and to try different single malts, and I felt that the time was right to introduce a new one.
Now, you had a previous career history in the single cask business, did you not?
Yeah, I did. I was an independent bottler, which meant that I bought casks of single malt from various distilleries around Scotland and bottled them myself at full strength, tending to be full strength, naming the distillery. And that sort of started my journey at the sort of premium end of the single malt whiskey market.
Back when I lived in Scotland some 28 years ago, I was a member of the Scottish Malt Whisky Society. So I was very familiar with all of the single cask bottlings and was a great fan, but don't see too many of them over here in Canada these days. Getting back to your distillery today, what was the attraction to Islay over anywhere else in Scotland?
I think, firstly, it's the iconic status that Islay has as a famous single malt producer. It helped that my wife's family had been on Islay for 70 years, and that they'd been coming here and loved Islay, so that helped. But I think it was more to do with Islay's iconic status worldwide, that the brand had become more and more famous because of the single malts that were exporting their product around the world, and I felt that that Islay, because of its distinct character of whiskey and the small island and only 7 distilleries, there was room for another one, and that's where I decided to build it. And space, I wouldn't have had the same cachet. There's 60 or 70 distilleries there, so it was about being able to stand out from the crowd, and
Right.
Islay was the choice because of that.
So you founded Kilchoman in 2005, and I think your first bottlings were in 2009 or thereabouts. What were the biggest challenges you faced birthing this brand new distillery on Islay?
I mean, it all came down to finance, really. I mean,
Right.
I think
Makes
that
sense.
when I was looking to raise money, there wasn't an appetite for a long-term investment, and 15, 20 years before you get a return. I think
Yeah.
people's views of investments was in and out as fast as they could take the money and run, and we couldn't offer that. So the financing of the business was the biggest challenge that I had. I surrounded myself with experts in terms of the production and people who understood single malt and where I wanted to position ourselves. That was all sort of reasonably straightforward, but financing it through the build work and through the lean years when you haven't got any income was very challenging. And 5 or 6 years, it was immensely stressful, but we got through that, and then we had product to sell. And I think it's pretty obvious that anybody building a distillery, there's massive challenges due to the finance required to be able to take you through to when you're making profits and you can reinvest.
As many new distilleries do, you didn't go down the clear spirits route to help with that financing throughout those lean years?
You're talking about gin, are you? In
Yes,
terms
yeah, yeah.
No, I mean, I think I thought that as a distraction. I mean, I think that quite obviously we started Kilchoman before the craze for gin started,
Right.
and you could argue that that had happened slightly earlier, I may well have been tempted to do the gin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad I didn't, and we could focus on what was important to us, which was producing single malt and not having any distractions at all. And I'm glad I did that, really.
Now, you're branded as an island farm distillery, or indeed the island farm distillery. What is the concept behind that? I find it quite interesting.
Yeah, look, we when we came up with the project, it was about having a point of difference, a uniqueness, something that people could grab hold of and run with. And I came up with the idea that let's locate it on a working farm where we could grow some of the malting barley and showcase, the barley to bottle route, do the whole production process on site. So single farm, single malt distillery. We can't do all our own production from our own barley, but we can showcase that side of it. And I think we were fortunate that at the time people were talking about provenance and tradition and traceability, and you can have all that here when you visit. And I think people like the story attached to be able to produce a single farm, single malt, and it certainly grabbed people's attention. There's no doubt about that.
Now, today we are here to speak about the Kilchoman. This is the Machir Bay, which is available in the LCBO right now for a very reasonable $90.25. How many malt whiskies do you make currently at the distillery?
Well, we have two core expressions, which account for 65% of our sales, and then we have limited editions, 4 of those, but those are limited. And we do single cask. So, quite a number, but I think when you're talking about regular core expressions, we just have 2 regular expressions which are available on an ongoing basis. Machir Bay is one of those, Sanig is the other, and then we have 2 limited releases that we release once a year. One is the single farm, single malt release, which is 100% Islay, and then we have a sherry cask, fully matured in sherry cask, again limited. So what we're doing is balancing what we're selling to what we're producing and sticking in the warehouse for future releases. And it's about just managing our stock in a way that we don't just run out and sell everything in one go. So Machir Bay and Sanig are the 2 expressions I would say that are regularly available. And obviously at the LCBO have got the Machir Bay. And we sell the Sanig in other parts of Canada as well.
Now, how would you describe the philosophy behind the Machir Bay? Machir Bay is kind of a beach close to the distillery, is it not?
That's correct. Yeah, it's half a mile from the distillery, and it's this sort of a couple of mile beach. It's very popular with locals as well as visitors to the island, and it seemed appropriate to name our first release as Machir Bay. They're non-aged, obviously, reasonably young, and we've come up with place names of local beaches or areas around Kilchoman that we call most of our releases.
Now, how would you describe this particular example? It sees 90% American oak barrel, bourbon barrel, right? And then 10% sherry butt, I believe.
That's correct. So 90% we call them American oak, bourbon barrels from Buffalo Trace Distillery. We buy all our barrels direct from source, and our bourbon barrels come from Buffalo Trace, or have been coming up until last year. And then Oloroso sherry butts that we buy from Jose Miguel Martin down in the south of Spain. And so the vatting, the combination, the blend of the bourbon and sherry, relatively young, sort of 4, 5, and 6-year-old casks, so relatively young.
Right.
And about showcasing the characteristics of Kilchoman, and bourbon does that wonderfully well. It's crisp, it's clean, it's fresh. There's sort of citrus and lemon notes, but it has a sort of sweetness attached to it. And then the Oloroso sherry butts just give it a bit more weight and a bit of depth and just a little bit more color. and that's about adding just a little bit of spice and character to the bourbon barrel maturation.
I
So
definitely
it's
did.
clean and fresh. Yeah.
I definitely did get that kind of lemon note on here, but also a kind of like a smoky beach thing going on. And I read a note somewhere, a beach bonfire, and it was definitely like that kind of beach fire when you're cooking fish straight from the sea for me.
I think that's right. A sort of barbecue on the beach, sort of salty, briny
Hmm.
character coming through as well. But above all, quite soft and sweet, not sort of punchy and sort of in your face. It's well integrated and well balanced within the malt itself. So I think what we're trying to suggest is that age is important. I think it tells a story and people can identify with an age statement. But it's about us, sort of putting whiskies out there that we're proud of and that we believe people will enjoy. And at a relatively young age, it's not something that people they're becoming more used to drinking young age single malts, but and we don't put an age on it because it just detracts from the message we're trying to get across.
I hear you. I hear you. There's definitely a wonderful balance of kind of that sort of brininess and a sweet smokiness on this, which makes it for me a great introduction to Islay malt.
Yeah, I think we found that people are surprised with the style it is. It's definitely Islay because you get that on the nose and on the palate with that sort of smoky, salty, briny character coming through. But there's a sweetness and integrated character that means it's not so sort of in your face in terms of the peaty, smoky character that sometimes you get from some single malts from Islay. So it's on the softer side of some of the single malts that are released from Islay, but it's distinctively Islay, which is what we wanted. But we wanted a different style to the others. I mean, every distillery wants something that shines through, that attracts people's attention, and that's what we've done. I think the good thing about building a distillery from scratch is you can sort of build the stills around the sort of character of whiskey you want to produce, and we definitely wanted to do something that was attractive at a relatively young age. It doesn't mean to say it's not going to carry on aging beautifully, and it will be better with age, but we wanted to be able to release our whiskies at a young age, and that was important to us, and fortunately it worked out pretty well.
How do you recommend people enjoy this particular bottling? I normally with most whiskeys just put in a touch of water. That's seen as sacrilege by many distillers. This one I'm actually drinking neat today, and it's I think because of that approachability, it's actually it performs quite well in the glass like that.
I don't tell anybody how to drink their whiskey. I think we can recommend ways, and I think, as you rightly say, you try it neat first of all, because I think that's important to gauge how much water you might need to add, and then rather than adding water straight away, I think it's important to taste it neat, and then you add a few drops and taste to your own individual requirement. Really, I think everyone drinks whiskey differently and have different ideas, but to drink it in the purest form, only adding water is key.
Yes.
It's reduced to 46%, and I think because our whiskies are quite sweet and floral, it doesn't need a lot of water to at that strength to turn it into something that's very pleasant.
I think I had a little bit of water in the glass when I was rinsing it earlier, and it just opened up the aromatics a little bit more for me. Really quite delightful. Anthony, thank you very much for joining us in Good Food Revolution today. And technical problems aside earlier, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. And we look forward to seeing you perhaps over in Toronto at some point in the future.
Yeah, no, there's a trip planning in the planning stages right now. So hopefully I'll be getting over relatively soon.
Super. Thank you so much once again. Bye for now.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.